I suspect that people will be jumping in and out of sessions, as is very typical at any conference, whether it is virtual or in person. Um, we have breakout sessions in different WebEx spaces. And so I have put in the chat, which you can open by looking in the lower right-hand corner of your WebEx screen. There's a little sort of bubble looking icon that says chat. You can open that at any time. You can also pop it out so it's not on top of your screen. If you see that there's orientation slides there, if you came in late, you can't see them. I will post them again in a few minutes. And that'll just tell you the location of various sessions over the course of the day. We're all in one room for the first hour, and then after that, we'll be moving around a little bit. Every room has both a host and a moderator. So the moderator will be watching the chat. If you have questions or comments that you'd like to make, we do advise you to put them in the chat, and we will catch up with you during Q&A. I also would recommend, if you look in the upper right-hand corner of your screen, right above where the videos are, there's a little box that says layout. Right now, most of you might be looking at the Brady Bunch layout, but if you click on that box, you can change it so that you'll see one video with smaller videos stacked. I would recommend that everyone keep themselves muted for unless we ask you to put your microphone back on. It just helps with background noise. And I'm trying to remember if there's something else I'm supposed to say. I probably forgot. Oh, the other piece is that we do ask for evaluations for the symposium. You do not have to evaluate each individual session. We're just asking you to evaluate the symposium as a whole. Because I know people will be jumping in and out during the day, we're going to be posting a link to that evaluation multiple times during the day, but you only have to fill it out once. I just want to keep reminding you all to do that and to acknowledge that you all may be jumping in and out at different times. If you get stuck for any reason, if you're having any technical difficulties, please feel free to put that in the chat. If you can't find the chat and you're really struggling, please unmute and just ask for help, and we will try to reorient you as quickly as possible. So I'm going to actually turn this opening session over to our Dean, Kimberly Moffitt, who's going to offer some words of welcome this morning.
Sure, and thank you so much, Denise, for inviting me. And I do not want to stand in the way of the exciting day we have. And truthfully, I'm primarily in this session because I want to hear from Carol Rhodes Dyson. I am a huge Busboys and Poets fan, and the work that they do in the community, which I think does a wonderful job of exactly what this is that we are gathered here today for, around public humanities and certainly social justice issues, and the work that that restaurant, that bookstore, and all of the programming that it does has really demonstrated to us some interesting ways of how we can blend all of these pieces together that are so very important to our community. So I just want to start with a few words and say first to you that I think the confirmation of Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson yesterday is a wonderful demonstration of inclusion, as well as the work that we continue to do on justice. And the inclusion imperative has done a stellar job of bringing together scholars, students, community folks, those who are committed to inclusivity together for such important conversations like the one that we've been having throughout her entire confirmation process, and as well as the way in which justice seems to show up in so much of the work that we're doing in our teaching, in our learning, and certainly in our research as academics. I often mention, and this sounds like a critique, but it is just candid, and I just want to say this, that I mention often that we struggle with the terms, or we struggle with terms like equity, diversity, and inclusion. We like the words, we often speak the words, but for many of us, we don't have a clue what they are. And I say that in terms, speaking primarily that we know them and we like them in theory, in the abstract, but when we start to talk about what do they mean in the lived experiences of those who continue to fight for the essence of those terms, that's where we seem to struggle as a society. Because to achieve that ideal around diversity, equity, and inclusion is difficult, it's painful, and it is horribly uncomfortable. And so many of us talk about these concepts. And again, we often talk about them in theory and in the abstract, but not in action. But what I say to you is yesterday, with the confirmation of Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson, we got to see action. um, it is inclusion of someone highly qualified, but yet who was vilified quite a bit as unfitting because she represented difference. And by difference, I mean that she represented difference in terms of her skin hue. She represented difference in terms of her possible ideology and how she thinks about the world. And she certainly exhibited difference because of her lived experience as a Black woman in this nation. But efforts like what we're doing with the inclusion imperative give us an opportunity to question, to challenge, and also advocate for a broader way of thinking about these terms and the social justice that, in my opinion, is inherently tied to what it means when we talk about inclusion in this country. So today's symposium gives us such a space to learn and learn more, because there is never a moment where we can say that we have learned all. So this is a wonderful opportunity for us to do just that, to learn and learn a bit more about the ways of using the public humanities in interesting and exciting ways to support efforts around social justice. I'm grateful to the Mellon Foundation for its commitment to these types of conversations, and their support around bringing us together to share and learn from one another. I also want to make sure to thank our partners in this work. Clearly, all of the efforts that the Dresher Center has done to spearhead this in collaboration with our partners at Howard University, Bowie State University, and certain Coppin State University, as well as the Anti-Racism and Action Faculty Working Group here on our campus. Again, Carol Rhodes Dyson is a wonderful addition to this conversation because of what she is bringing to the table to let us see, again, not what diversity, equity, and inclusion looks like in theory or abstract, but to show us what it looks like through her work in action. So after yesterday's news, I am today inspired, excited, and encouraged about what we are doing in the inclusion imperative and our potential impact on society as a whole. And I want to thank you all for being here today, and I do hope you thoroughly enjoy today's symposium. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dean Moffitt, for that wonderful welcome and words of encouragement and a reminder that it's a day to celebrate some important changes happening in our country, hopefully. My name is Denise Meringolo. I'm the acting director of the Dresher Center for the Humanities this year. And for those of you who are new to UMBC or to the Dresher Center, I just wanted to let you know that the Dresher Center for the Humanities supports and promotes research into the historical, cultural, and social dimensions of the human experience. And we encourage intellectual exchange and collaborative scholarship among faculty and students, and increasingly with our partners from outside the university as well. All of our work rests on those two key phrases, partnership and collaboration. Those are really the cornerstones of the kind of inclusive work that we aim to accomplish. Collaboration, and by collaboration, I mean true collaboration, where everybody enters into a space with their own expertise, their own knowledge, their own authority, and the hard work comes in honoring and respecting all of those positions and making them part of a larger conversation. So today's symposium is really tied to our partnership building efforts and specifically to the inclusion imperative. The Inclusion Imperative has been a multi-year initiative made possible by a grant from the Andrew Mellon Foundation. And through the Inclusion Imperative, we've worked in partnership with Bowie State University, Coppin State University, and Howard University to cultivate a network of scholars who are committed to diversity and inclusion in the humanities. These partnerships have really guided the development and implementation of our three major programs under the Inclusion Imperative, which are the Diversity Teaching Network in the Humanities, the Visiting Faculty Fellowship Program, and the Humanities Teaching Labs. All of these programs have supported and expanded community-engaged research, teaching, and learning focused around issues of equity, inclusion, and justice. So today, we have the opportunity to really explore the promise of this kind of work, especially as it relates to the public humanities. We're going to actually hear how inspiring and often how difficult it can be. And we're hoping that you'll leave here today with new ideas, new energy, new excitement, because I think what makes this work important and inspiring is the fact that it's difficult. I think if it was easy, it wouldn't feel worth our energy and our time. So I just want to orient us one more time. I'm sure I'm not alone in having mixed feelings about our virtual format today. On the one hand, I'm delighted that we've been able to reach so many of you who might not have been able to travel to Baltimore for an event. On the other hand, I know we're all feeling a bit of Zoom fatigue or WebEx fatigue, as it may be. So to try to address that, I just want to be clear that we've really made a commitment to keeping tight to our schedule. I have found that I really need to know how long an event is, what happens next, where do I need to go next, when can I ask a question? And so we're going to be keeping close track of time. We have our group of volunteers who are serving as hosts and moderators. We encourage you to use the chat at any time if you have a question. And just as a couple reminders, please keep yourself muted. If you have a question or comment, you can post it in the chat, and our room monitors will be keeping a close eye on that. If it's possible to leave your camera on, that's always helpful for the speakers, because otherwise we're looking at a bunch of gray boxes with names on them. We totally understand that that might not be possible, or it might be difficult even just for your internet connection. But if it's possible for you to leave your camera on, we would really, really appreciate that. I'm going to put the link in the chat to the Google slide deck, which is an orientation device. It includes information about WebEx and about our upcoming sessions. Once our concurrent sessions begin at 11:10, you will want to use that slide deck to help you figure out where to move to another session, and we'll be sharing that frequently throughout the day. I'll also be sharing a link to the evaluation form, which we just ask you to fill out once at the end of your time in our symposium today. So thank you so much to all of our partners. Thank you to Dean Moffitt, and thank you to the Anti-Racist and Action Faculty Working Group, the members of which have been really central to our planning and development for the symposium today. And now I'd like to turn things over to my colleague, Elaine McDougall, who's been an organizer of the Anti-Faculty and Action Working Group, and she will introduce our guest speaker.